Ancient technologies. Quartz crystals. So just a random thought. Well, not too random since I see a lot of people constantly, questioning the capabilities of people of the past, not understanding that ancient humans had jewelry, right? They had access to minerals like quartz, other gems, you know. They were the first ones to find gems because they were here first, right? Before we were born. So, of course, they would know about, about these crystals because they would have eventually found them. Especially if they had nothing better to do and they were bored and started digging in the ground, then found this stuff. Like, oh snap, there's stuff in the ground. Let's continue digging and find stuff, right? And they would have eventually found a whole bunch of crystals, all different types. At some point, they would have realized, oh, light reflects off of them, or they reflect light, like they bend light, and they would have used it to do magnifications. They would use it to see things at a small scale, like see things in water, see things, on the ground, see ants and stuff, right? So we're aware of bugs, what the bugs look like, right? And many other things. And of course, they can create telescopes by using a couple lens crystals in a straight row, right? And create a magnification so they can see far distance. So the idea of, ancient humans couldn't have known about planets and stuff like that and stars is false when they literally have access to crystals. So then this brings up the fact that a lot of times I'll see people like try to say, when somebody's like, hey, look, what this person is wearing looks like technology, I don't know, like a stone carving, and somebody be like, it's just jewelry. Not on this, and those people who make that it's just jewelry kind of don't realize that jewelry is technology, right? We all have watches, right? That is a jewelry. It's a man-made thing made of earth metals, right? Earth raw materials, and we turn it into something we can wear, right? Because we're not born with watches, we're not born with smartphones. We have to create these things. So the idea of like a jewelry, right? The thing of a jewelry is, it usually consists of like some, certain types of crystals, some copper wiring, or some other type of metal. So there's metal and crystals combined to create jewelry. There are other types. Obviously, you can use like strings and do beads. So, and whatnot. But the main point is that they had access to these materials, right? Crystals and metals. So of course they were going to, some people were going to be bored, and their hobby is going to be to play with crystals and metals and and create things. So the possibility of them creating technology that uses crystals and metal was going to be a thing. See, we would consider them in a primitive lens. We will see them as just jewelry makers, but they didn't see themselves as jewelry makers. They probably saw themselves as wizards or sorcerers or something, or magicians, right? Or gods, right? Whatever they considered themselves, because they knew how to use crystals and metal together and do stuff. And then with water and many other things, right? Then they figure out gas, the usefulness of light, using the crystals to bend light. So the possibility of them creating laser beams is not difficult, because all we do is take light, right, photons, and then we just focus all those photons into one point, and that's how we get a laser beam. So it's very possible for ancient humans to have done the same thing. They would have figured out that, oh, okay, we could take the sunlight and we can reflect it back and forth using these crystals, and we can create a laser. So just a matter of showing proof that they had lasers with, like, that'll be a future video, ancient lasers, because people love talking about ancient humans. So, the misunderstanding of how jewelries work, right? The misunderstanding that jewelries is just for fashion, just for fun, just for aesthetics. But ironically, people who study the ancient past, they have they have a different view of the jewelry. Yes, they have the it's just for aesthetics and whatnot, but they also have it for ritualistic reasons. But I understand humans well enough to know, especially modern day humans, that everything has a reason. And sometimes, yes, you might have something for religious reasons, sentimental reasons, but there's always something inspired it. And that's the thing. Like, who was the first person to think of, like, oh, let me take some rocks, drill some holes in it, put rope through it, tie it around, right, and then put it around my wrist. Right? Who came up with the first bracelet? Right? Who created the first necklace? Right? And the list goes on. Like, so who came up with the initial idea to combine these, you know, raw materials and create stuff? Usually, ironically, I like using the concept of children. Kids invented 99% of things, right? Because usually it is kids playing around, messing around with things, being curious, right? Imagination, all that good stuff. And they're the ones who find out things. Like, they grab a rock and they throw it and they realize that the flat, smooth rocks, they're like circular, saucer shaped, bounce on the water. So they start skipping those rocks. And then that's, you know, adults see them do that, and then they use that knowledge and later on creates stuff that, you know, stuff made of stone that can float, right? Or just something as simple as a tree branch, throw it in the water, see that it floats, get in the water, start playing with the wood that's floating in the water, and then realize, hey, look, I can sit on it and ride it, and then get a stick, another stick, and use the stick to navigate, and there you go. You just invented a boat, a wooden boat, right? And that's how the boat would have been invented, right? And the list goes on. Like building Great Pyramids. It would have been a kid's idea to take a whole bunch of rocks and stack it, and then they would have realized that when you use the rocks that have the same size, same shape, it doesn't, it falls over too easy. So then they started using bigger rocks at the bottom, smaller in the middle, very small rocks at the top, right in the top, and they figured out that if you do that, you can make a really, really tall, stack of rocks that it won't easily fall over, right? And they probably have an annoying brother or sister who has a habit of trying to knock it over, which is more reason why they need to make sure that it was more structurally sound, aka earthquake proof or sibling proof. And some adults saw it and it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. Maybe we should build something like that with that method, big at the bottom, small at the top. And the Great Pyramids are built. You know what I mean? And the list goes on, right? That somebody at some time was a child with imagination. Imagination is the existence of human consciousness, would have figured out how to use crystals, right, as a power source, but also use crystals as, as for telescopes and for glasses and whatnot, and many other things you could do with it. They definitely would have realized how hard it is, that they can be used to cut stone, so then they would use crystals to cut stone, and that's how we get, stone cutting, right? And then it's like, oh, we cut stone, now we stack the stone, and the Great Pyramid is built, right? And that's just the main thing I wanted to point out, is like a lot of people don't take that into consideration, that, things that we take for granted now, the things we think is advanced right now, actually is very basic, very simple, stuff. We like to think it's advanced, but in reality, it's basic.